Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Say what? Say what? Say what? One more time.
We commence the proceedings with our signature segment, Say What, where we roll out some of the most wacky, astonishing, damnable, and ultimately revealing things uttered by politicians and the chattering class. After 3 long years of dilly-dallying, as the Brits like to say, the Brexit deal moved one major step closer to completion with an overwhelming victory by Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party in this week's UK elections. LibertyNation.com managing editor Mark Angelides, who worked tirelessly on the Brexit issue for years, said the British people spoke loudly and clearly.
The whole anti-Brexit theme that's running through the Labour Party was repudiated by the British people.
What is the Brexit deal likely to look like?
It all depends on how the negotiations go with the European Union. Now, they have a withdrawal agreement in place that the EU 27 have agreed to.
Does the size of this victory by the Conservatives, by the Tories, by Boris Johnson, give him substantially more leverage in his negotiations with the European Union?
If Boris chooses not to go with the withdrawal agreement that's being negotiated, there's not very much that the European Union can do about it. But that really depends on the political will of Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party.
But while Brits celebrated back on the home front, we got impeachment and the IG report. Two scandals in one, all revolving around supposed foreign interference in U.S. elections. And think about it this way, folks. As the Justice Department Inspector General releases a report detailing almost unthinkable abuses of power by a rogue, transparently biased Obama FBI headed by the disgraced James Comey, detailing a dossier used to trick the FISA court produced in Russia, Democrats are set to impeach Trump for trying to use foreign actors to influence an election. Seriously. Call it projection, elevated to an art form by the Democratic Party. Project your own sins onto your enemies. They've been doing it for the last 4 years, actually a lot longer than that. When Inspector General Michael Horowitz presented his report to the Senate, this issue of the Steele dossier was front and center because it was thoroughly unreliable, to the point that even the Trump-hating mainstream elite media laughed it off and refused to print it. And because we now know that unlike what James Comey has said, it was presented as the only justification for a FISA warrant, according to Michael Horowitz.
The Crossfire Hurricane team obtained information from Steele's primary subsource in January 2017 that raised significant questions about the reliability of the Steele reporting. This was particularly noteworthy because the FISA applications relied entirely on information from the primary subsource's reporting to support the allegation that Page was coordinating with the Russian government on 2016 U.S. presidential election activities.
So, Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham, the anti-Trump Republican turned major Trump defender, described what a potentially legitimate inquiry into Carter Page turned into with the FISA process, and then asked a basic question of the Inspector General.
It's a massive criminal conspiracy over time to defraud the FISA court, to illegally surveil an American citizen. If you don't have a legal foundation to surveil somebody and you keep doing it, is that bad?
Absolutely.
Is that spying?
It's not. It's illegal surveillance. It's not court-authorized
surveillance.
Whatever
illegal surveillance means, they did it.
Attorney General William Barr is now involved in a much broader investigation of this illegal surveillance of the Trump campaign. And in an extraordinary move, as head of the Justice Department, Barr went on NBC News and said the Inspector General of his own department didn't go nearly far enough in his condemnation of this whole ugly affair.
They get this information that this somewhat vague statement was made in a bar. And they jumped right into a full-scale investigation before they even went and talked to the foreign officials about exactly what was said. From a civil liberties standpoint, the greatest danger to our free system is that the incumbent government use the apparatus of the state, principally the law enforcement agencies and the intelligence agencies, both to spy on political opponents, but also to use them in a way that could affect the outcome of the election. As far as I'm aware, this is the first time in history that this has been done to a presidential campaign. There has to be some basis before we use these very potent powers in our core First Amendment activity. And here, I felt this was very flimsy.
We'll talk about how this IG report is so similar to another recent scandal in a bit. But speaking of flimsy, how about the impeachment of Trump? The Democrats are prepared to make their move with 2 watered-down articles of impeachment, and while many people profess to being relieved that this show trial is coming to a close, if you think this impeachment business is over, think again. Congressman Al Green, who admitted what Democrats have been thinking all along when he said they had to impeach Trump or he'll get reelected, now says the Democrats can keep this impeachment train going ad infinitum.
A president can be impeached more than once. So we can do this. We can move forward with what we have on the table currently. We can take this before the Senate, and we can still investigate other issues. And when the president has committed additional offenses, and my suspicion is that he will, we can take those before the Senate. There is no limit on the number of times the Senate can vote to convict or not a president. No limit to the number of times the House can vote to impeach or not.
Impeachment today, impeachment tomorrow, impeachment forever.